1. Again, 800-537-2701.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
We have vital information we would like to share with you. The Department of Indian Works St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on testing sites, isolation space, vaccines, housing assistance, and food resources. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19 or has questions to determine if you should get tested, please call them at 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986. That's 651-304-9986.
AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Cloudy skies overnight with a low of 43, then cloudy on Saturday and a high of 55. Cafe Latte at Victoria and Grand in St. Paul offers an award-winning assortment of sandwiches, salads, and soups, a pizza and wine bar, and treats from the bakery made fresh daily. Check them out at cafelatte.com. That's Cafe Latte, Victoria Street and Grand Avenue in St. Paul.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanjahade, which means in Ho-Chunk, it means distant thunder. Hey, my colonized name, Wendy, is Robert Pilot. That's on our wedding certificate. And even though you have a different last name, we're all wondering about that. But hopefully we're still married, or I have been married. And we discuss national and Twin City Native news and events. And as we all know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. You could call them at 651-304-9986. They are open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And you don't need to live in Minnesota to call them.
Yeah, give them a call. Hey, I feel a little, I feel better now. You're here. I don't feel abandoned. You were gone yesterday, but
I was gone, yeah.
And thanks for Robert Lilligren for stepping in and doing another half a segment, and then Ogama with the news and doing some
awesome
some animal news.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah. Hey,
I had the day off.
Yeah, one in a row. So hey, a lot going on. So why don't we, let me just say this before we hand it over to Ogma. It's really awesome that that's not a native word, awesome. I say that a lot, but it's really great that Ogma gathers the news and whatever's native centric or also our general area, with especially with the George Floyd thing going on and in Chicago and Madison and all over Turtle Island. And you don't really hear much news like this, Wendy,
You don't.
on other shows. So, hey, welcome, Ogama, and happy Friday.
Hey, happy Friday, Robert. And I think you're maybe going to have to learn how to say awesome in Hoak for us. That would be good. Um, you mentioned the George Floyd trial, and I want to start there. So students organized a walkout out of White Bear Lake High School in the metro area in Minnesota today, and it was to demand an end to anti-Black racism. Apparently, students have been experiencing harassment, being called the N-word, and those kinds of things. And Black Lives Matter of Minnesota covered the walkout on their Facebook page, and it was really inspiring to see. And I think that, when you're facing that kind of racism and that kind of thing in school, we go back to Native mascots and those kinds of things all the time, exactly how damaging that is. And I'm proud of those youth and those people for helping them to step out and walk out and say, enough is enough. We don't have to take this just because we're students. And that was really, really an awesome event I seen today. Some other events that happened today. St. Louis activists joined against the Line 3 pipeline fight in Minnesota. So, a group of activists from St. Louis traveled to Bemidji, Minnesota, and they came to stand in solidarity with Indigenous water protectors, and they locked themselves down to blockade all entrances to the main Enbridge Energy office in Bemidji. They spent like almost 8 hours locked down in the 34-degree rain. And they were eventually cut off by the Beltrami County Sheriff's Office. So they were in what they call sleeping dragon devices. So it's I don't know exactly how they're made, but essentially the items that they used to lock themselves down with were reinforced with steel bars. So initially Beltrami County or not Beltrami County, excuse me, rather, Bemidji City Police responded to the reports of the lockdown initially, but it was Beltrami County law enforcement who eventually came. And the officers warned the protesters over the speakers, if you do not remove the immobilization device for yourself, officials will remove the device, which could cause burns, cuts, or other injuries. We will also charge a fee of $5,000. Even though they've been reimbursed for $170,522 for expenses related to Line 3 construction site law enforcement. And these are expenses that were incurred by Beltrami County Sheriff's Office for training deputies, purchasing the equipment, like the equipment that they use to cut these protesters off. It's already been reimbursed, and then they're going to charge a fee of $5,000 to these protesters. Like, it's just blowing my mind that is happening again. There was also a defund Line 3 rally at 5th Avenue and Atwood in Pittsburgh today around 2 a.m. It was a divestment rally at the Chase Bank to defund Line 3. They have a group called Fossil Free Pit, that's PIT, and they did it in solidarity to stop Enbridge and protect native land. And then in the San Francisco Bay Area, Extinction Rebellion groups, the Extinction Rebellion group of San Francisco Bay Area painted murals in solidarity at the Wells Fargo World headquarters on Montgomery Street in Sacramento. On Montgomery Street in San Francisco. So those were really beautiful as well. And they do plan to do more rallies, and they have been pretty vocal down in California with the defund Line 3 and helping to stop Line 3. So miigwech to you out there. April 16th through 18th, you're invited to Red Lake Treaty Camp for a 2-day canoe camping event to honor and pray for the water. Please RSVP by calling 701-312-9032. That is also posted on Native Roots Radio. And then on Earth Day, we are going to be co-hosting an event with Honor the Earth called Mother Earth Day. There's going to be live music, performances, special speakers. It's really going to be great. However, in a bit of unfortunate news, the Biden administration today announced that it will not take immediate action to shut down Dakota Access Pipeline, or DAPL. So the government has to conduct a court-ordered environmental review because the pipeline basically began illegally transporting crude oil near the Standing Rock Reservation in 2017. Trump pushed the permits through to get DAPL up and going, and then a judge ruled in July of 2020 that they didn't have the water crossing permit, that they needed to have that revoked. And the tribe is seeking an injunction from the court to halt the operation until the environmental review is complete. But the Biden administration said that they are going to let it continue operating while the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers figures out what their decision is. And as of earlier this week, they said they need another 2 months to figure out what they're going to do about a pipeline that's been operating illegally. So I'm not sure why that needs another 2 months, but that's kind of where it's at right now. So expect some more news coming in about DAPL. In Florida, this has been going on all week, and I just want to touch on it today. There's a serious leak in a dam in Florida that's spewing nitrogen and phosphate-laden wastewater from a fertilizer plant wastewater impoundment. Basically, the wastewater is being intentionally discharged into Tampa Bay, which they hope to avert a complete failure of the dam by doing this. If the dam breaks, it's going to unleash a 20-foot high wall of water onto the surrounding community. They had to do major evacuation around the surrounding community, and the area where this wastewater is poised to leak is right next to an environmentally sensitive protected area in
Tampa
Florida.
Bay, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep, and they're currently leaking it into Tampa Bay because it's that or destroy the surrounding community. Like they're kind of between a rock and a hard place down there right now. And if you want more information about that or ongoing info about the emergency, you can go to skytruth.org, and they actually keep tabs on all reported environmental leaks, oil spills, gas companies, and they tend to highlight those. But it's really cool. They show you a whole map of the United States, and you can just pick any of the little red pins throughout the country, and it'll give you a number for the incident, and it'll give you a description of it. So that's a really, really good resource for those of you who are interested.
Wow. Anything else? Got 30 seconds, Ogama.
No, just a happy Friday, everybody. Keep up the good fight, wear your masks, pray for Minneapolis and for the family of George Floyd, and be good to one another.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Wendy.
Get vaccinated.
What else? Give your husbands
Get
a
vaccinated.
hug. Give your husband a hug.
Okay, we could get a hug. Honey, we're still married. Don't worry.
Okay. Hey, up next, State Senator Mary Kunesh. You're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanjahade.
Stay with us.
We'll be right back.
Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
We have vital information we would like to share with you. The Department of Indian Work St.Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on testing sites, isolation space, vaccines, housing assistance, and food resources. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19 or has questions to determine if you should get tested, please call them at 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986. That's 651-304-9986.
This is Winona Duke of Honor the Earth, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio. I'm awake.
We are the Calusa Nation.
Hey, welcome back. Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanjahade.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. You can call them at 651-304-9986, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and you don't have to live in Minnesota to call them.
You just have to have a phone.
You just have to have a phone. You can call them with COVID questions, and they have lots and lots of good resources.
Right, and they can turn you on. I know we have people listen to us all over Turtle Island. They love the calls from other people. They can turn you on to somebody local or answer any of those COVID questions because it's always changing, right?
Absolutely, and they get updates every day.
Well, Wendy, you read that and did that by heart like an old pro. Welcome back. I know taking a day off sometimes throws you off.
I'm not off at all.
Hey, well, today's Friday and it's Feel Good Friday. And one of the people that we love and feel good about having on our show is State Senator Mary Kunesh. And we love having her on because she talks a little national stuff and a little local stuff and political stuff, and then sometimes she talks about personal things, but very rare. We'll have to get that out of her, like how many pets she has and things like that. But
how's her bathroom coming along?
Yeah,
Stuff like that.
Hey, welcome, State Senator Mary Kunesh. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Robert and Wendy. It's always fun to be here on a Friday afternoon or evening, I should say.
Right, exactly. So we talk a little bit to our peeps that live in the Twin Cities area here in Minnesota about the vibe that we're feeling with the trial, what's happening, and you're at the Capitol, and what kind of vibe are you feeling about this trial?
Well, I think most people are really thankful that the truth is coming out and that George Floyd is not being re-victimized, even though when we see the pictures or we watch video of what happened that day, and the number of people that called out to the police to stop doing what they're doing, that they aren't re-victimized. And I think most folks are very much relieved that we haven't had incidences of the civil unrest that we experienced here in the Twin Cities this summer. Not that it couldn't pop up at any moment, but the case is going along, the hearing is moving along very quickly. I think they're a little bit ahead of schedule, but it is really refreshing to know that any kind of attempt to put the fault or put the blame on George Floyd has been very thoroughly disputed, and the evidence is clear that this was a murder. And I think that had this hearing been going a little bit differently, we might be having some unrest here in Minnesota, but so far so good. And it's really, I'm thankful that the actual truth and incidents is actually coming out in a really well played out way. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, really. And, somebody put something on Facebook the other day that, they said that if George Floyd was resisting arrest so badly and Chauvin had his, knee on his neck, Chauvin also had his hands in his pocket for most of the time on the video. And if somebody is resisting arrest so badly, why would the police officer have his hands in his pocket? And I thought that was just something that was like, wow, I didn't even, realize that, but it was so true.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you hear about, I know there was the council was trying to defend Chauvin and say that George Floyd was, had drugs in his system and other health issues that contributed or caused his death. But I was listening to the radio this morning to the coroner, and he was saying that it wasn't just that he had his knee on the neck, but also on his back. And when they did the investigation, they found that the impact on the lung because of the weight and the way the knee went into Floyd's back, that the lung, I think it was the left lung, was like literally destroyed. And so when he was calling out and saying, "I can't breathe," he literally could not breathe. His lung had collapsed, and everything else followed. So the truth is coming out, and we have to realize that yes, we need police reform, and we need it in every way possible. And even if a police agency has not trained their officers in that manner, or allowed, or say we don't allow that kind of action, they have to make sure that those officers are not using that, even if it's something that they've learned elsewhere, or they've picked up along the way, or are just going solo with some kind of action. And it is a reflection on that police force, and it's the responsibility of the police, other police agents, as well as their administration, to ensure that their police officers are not using those kind of fatal actions, regardless of what the situation is.
Yeah, one of the things that was really interesting that I want to bring up too, and I wonder if you guys heard, was that he did not die of an overdose, because that's the whole thing. One of the doctors came in and basically said there were certain things that he would have done if he would have been ODing, and he didn't. Did you hear that, you guys? Or
Well,
Wendy?
I just heard on the Matt McNeil show that Matt was saying that the amount of drugs that he had in his system, if he was caught in a driving incident, he wouldn't have gotten a DUI at all, because the amount of drugs in his system was just so small.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that
it really. Go ahead,
I think
Mary.
it goes to also, it's important to understand. I heard some of the testimony of his girlfriend, and she said that he suffered from chronic pain. And one of the tragedies in our society this day is the pharmaceutical use of painkillers. And it's important to know that people do use illicit drugs to manage their pain. And if that was the case, then he certainly was not ODing.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's just amazing.
And
go ahead.
Ogama on our Facebook Live just put up too that Chauvin had over 21 incidences of force used. So this is not his first rodeo.
Right, and that's from one of our listeners, Kathy. Thank you for reminding
Kathy Rainbow. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for reminding us that. And and it's funny too. We going back to Standing Rock and the way the Hennepin County sheriffs were acting to peaceful protesters, and then helping Hennepin County sheriff, new sheriff Dave Hutchinson, take reins. Before any of this went down, there was bad cops to get out, and then also mental things going on.
Yeah. Stenek was the cop.
Well, we got Stenek out, but Dave Hutchinson's in, right?
Thank goodness.
Yeah, I didn't want to name his name, but and the first thing he did was add more people to the force that were helping with these kind of mental situations, Wendy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the vibe Senator, about at the Capitol? Have people been talking about this? Other lawmakers been talking about it?
Yeah, yes, we definitely have been talking about it, and kind of what we're doing here. What did you hear? What do you understand? I think we are waiting to see what our role will be as we go forward, especially around police reform. If you remember last year, or for this last year, we have continued to be in session basically at the legislature. And all last summer, we worked really hard on police reform. I'm a member of what we call the Posse Caucus here in Minnesota, people of color and indigenous. And as a result, we went through probably 25 different pieces of suggested legislation around police reform, the post board, making sure that the kind of weapons that are being used are not the kind that are going to take lives. So we looked through the whole realm of police reform and came up with a few that we were able to present in the during the legislature last summer. And that kind of work is continuing. A lot of it is with discussion of our with our police union and police forces. I've had conversations with the police agencies within the community that I represent, and they've been very clear about that kind of violence and overuse of violence is not acceptable. And so those are the conversations that each one of our police forces, our communities, need to have with their officers and within their departments.
Absolutely. Hey, stay with us, Mary. Another section, please. Hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and we're with Minnesota State Senator Mary Kunesh, and we'll be right back after this short break.
Stay with us. We have vital information we would like to share with you. The Department of Indian Works St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on testing sites, isolation space, vaccines, housing assistance, and food resources. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19 or has questions to determine if you should get tested, please call them at 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986. That's 651-304-9986.
Located just north of 50th in France, the Great Wall Restaurant has provided a delicious taste of authentic Chinese cuisine since 1981. Specializing in Szechuan and Peking dishes, they offer one of the most extensive menus in the Twin Cities. Favorites include hot and sour soup, pan-fried dumplings, and mushu pork with homemade Chinese pancakes. Stop by their Edina location or call for takeout at 952-927-4439. See the full menu at greatwallrestaurant.us.
A lot of things are different with the pandemic, but we're still a blue state in Minnesota, so some traditions must go on. It's the 2021 AM 950 Blue State Ball, Saturday, April 17th. This year's Blue State Ball is going virtual, and everyone is going to be there. Stephanie Miller, John Fugelsang, Tom Hartman, all the local hosts. Virtual waiting room opens at 6, and the hosts begin at 7. Tickets cost $20. Join us on Saturday, April 17th for the 2021 AM 950 Virtual Blue State Ball. Ticket information at am950radio.com.
This is Santita Jackson, Minneapolis, St. Paul. I couldn't be more excited about starting our days together, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. Central on the Progressive Voice of Minnesota.
If you're hurting in your relationship or have been affected by sexual violence, you're not alone. Strong Hearts Native Helpline can help you through these difficult and uncertain times. Strong Hearts Helpline is a free 24/7 confidential domestic dating and sexual violence helpline for Native Americans. Help is available by calling 1-844-762-8483 or by clicking on the Chat Now icon on strongheartshelpline.org. This message is sponsored by the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center.
After celebrating Minnesota remaining a blue state after the virtual Blue State Ball, join AM 950 and Tom Hartman the morning after for a virtual brunch. It takes place Sunday, April 18th at 11 a.m. Due to distancing guidelines, you will need to bring your own brunch and beverages this year, but as always, Tom will provide intriguing conversation. So sit back in the comfort of your own home and listen to Tom discuss his new book, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, Reclaiming Our Democracy from the Ruling Class. Tom will take audience questions, and you'll even get a free copy of his new book as part of your admission. Again, that's AM 950 hosting a virtual brunch on Zoom with Tom Hartman the morning after the Blue State Ball on Sunday, April 18th. The virtual waiting room opens at 10:30 with Tom starting the discussion at 11. Tickets are $75 and are very limited due to the small group setting. So order your tickets now at am950radio.com. That's am950radio.com.
AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Cloudy skies overnight with a low of 43, then cloudy on Saturday and a high of 55. AM 950's virtual Blue State Ball is coming and everybody is going to be there. Saturday night, April 17th. Virtual doors open at 6 p.m. and the hosts begin at 7. Tickets are $20 and you can get them at am950radio.com. Get yours today, am950radio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio Presents. I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade.
This portion of the show is brought to you by MN350, a grassroots organization fighting for climate justice, and the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Well, Wendy, another Blue State Ball coming up.
I know, on Saturday,
April 17th, 6 o'clock, and we're some of the stars now because we're on 5 days a week. Woo! We're going to be hanging with the big shots, and so
moving up in the world. We're moving up.
Yeah, and remember last year was a lot earlier. It was just before COVID really hit, and we had it. There was a lot of politicians at that one. It was just before election and some national stuff. So we're looking forward to this. Will be our fourth one.
We'll be there. Sign up. $20.
Yeah, $20. Hey, we're going to get back to Minnesota State Senator Mary Kunesh, and we're always really happy to have her on Fridays, our Mellow Fridays. And I have a quick question for you, Mary. And we talked a little bit about this earlier today, and we had Ruth Buffalo on Monday. And House Representative Ruth Buffalo of North Dakota. And she was so excited about the bill they passed. And you said that Minnesota attempted to do this bill too, teaching Native American history, and it was shot down. That's really, really interesting that North Dakota's ahead of us right now in some social things.
It's a sad story when they beat us to it, but you know what? Actually, when I was first inspired to begin the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Task Force, it was because at the federal level, North Dakota was working on that, and so yes, we here in Minnesota had proposed. Like every 10 years in Minnesota, we revise our curriculum within our schools, or maybe it's 20 years. But anyways, our social studies standards are up and they need to be updated, as do our social studies curriculum. And so one of the proposals was to make sure that that we are incorporating, true, authentic, factual history around our Native American ancestors and the history of Native Americans in Minnesota. And so I had a build to create a work group that would work hard on incorporating the actual fact of the history of our Native Americans within that curriculum, as well as a full general ethnic studies curriculum in Minnesota schools, because we have more than 143,000 Minnesota students who speak a language other than English at home. And that's like over 300 different languages. And as we are revitalizing our Dakota and our Ojibwe languages, it's just really important that we are also bringing those into the classroom, because it really makes a difference when it comes to race and racism, to understanding, the powerful social and cultural and political forces of our communities and our states, and then, the importance of instruction for those ethnic studies for our students from a very young age until, right through high school. And so, yes, we proposed an amendment to our education omnibus bill, and we would have a requirement of Indigenous studies in all of our public schools. And I remember growing up in Minnesota and never really learning anything about our Indigenous ancestors in this state. My grandpa and my mom were enrolled tribal members of Standing Rock, and even though my mom didn't grow up there, she certainly instilled the pride for our Lakota heritage, but my grandpa was the one who told us the bits and pieces. And so we never learned in school how the ancestors in this state of Minnesota and the identities are interwoven and influenced by the culture and experience of our tribes. And so I shared that. I proposed the amendment asking that we would integrate culturally relevant pre-kindergarten learning for all our American Indian children and public school students. It would cost about $809 million over the next 2 years to put it together. But unfortunately, the chair of the committee said no. I have to just say that our Senate in Minnesota is a Republican majority. Our House is Democrat, DFL majority, and so we have to find agreement. But as usual, our Republican counterparts do not want to spend any money. In fact, in this omnibus bill, there is no increase in our educational formula. So there's no increase in the amount that we would be putting per pupil into the future, the next 2 years, which I feel is really derelict of duty. And it's really hard because, I think our tribes here in Minnesota, a lot of the leadership are really frustrated by what we see that's lacking in our school curriculum. And it's really imperative that we ensure that that our students and our teachers are going to hear and learn and understand about the contributions of our tribal nations, and make sure that we're not just doing it for our Indigenous students, because we do have, of course, magnet schools here in Minnesota, but for all students here in Minnesota.
Absolutely. Hey, so Kathy, that's watching us on Facebook, is reading my mind. I wanted to ask you a quick thing about, so we have a new variance and it's affecting children, and we're going back to school in St. Paul and
the COVID variant.
Yes, thank you. I love Wendy, but she fits in, fills in. I miss words, like important words, like
variants. We're so slight. It's two different things.
Yes, thank you. But Is there any buzz or any talk about that? Because I know it's really picking up steam. We've really leveled off at 60,000 roughly a day, people getting infected, and now all of a sudden with this new variants, we have a lot. This new COVID variant. Oh wow, variant. We have more students getting. It is Friday, right?
It's Friday.
Yeah, getting at younger people. So, is there any talk about modifying schools or any people going back to school here in Minnesota?
Well, I think at this point, the school districts do have the flexibility to figure out how they're going to do their classes, if it's going to be a hybrid or if in person. And of course, I think it's all of our students, our families can decide whether they are going to return in person to school or whether they're going to keep their students home. It's really interesting because I heard a report that more families of color are actually keeping their students home, that they've found that they're not comfortable sending their kids. We know that our families of color, our kids of color are more susceptible to a lot of these kind of variants, shall we say, given their, the historic lack of medical attention and where they live and their access to good food. And so I think school districts have that flexibility to allow students to work distance or to come in. But it is really, it's really heartbreaking. We protected those kids for so long. And a lot of people would say, well, kids aren't getting it. They are immune to it. Well, this is such a sneaky little virus that the minute that we think that somebody's safe, shall we say, it's finding a way to affect that group of people. And I think that if it ever should come that if the students or the children start to be severely affected, as far as even mortality, I can only imagine, and none of us want this, but, I'm not saying there's going to be a shutdown again, but, we really do have to be conscious of how quickly this virus can morph into a different variety.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, a
Wendy.
friend of ours, her kids just went back to school, and one of her kids got COVID and didn't have any symptoms. They came home, and now the dad is infected, and now they're all quarantined, and it'll who knows? There's a sister, I believe, a younger sister, and the mom. They're getting tested now to see, but the dad ended up in the hospital now. He's not on a ventilator. He is on oxygen, and he does have COVID-related pneumonia. So he is in the hospital right now. So we're sending our prayers.
So Wendy and I are fully vaccinated with the 14 days after, and I know Ogama is too. And so we're excited, but we're still going to be wearing masks and still doing the whole 6 feet thing. And so where are you at, Senator?
I have had my one shot. I've had my one shot, and I received that here in the Twin Cities. Everyone in my family, all my children have had at least one shot. My daughter, who's pregnant, has had her too. So there's a little personal information. But my son received his from up in Leech Lake. So in a week or two, I'm going to drive back up with him, and so he can get his second shot. But yeah, we cannot let our guard down. We have had at the state legislature and the Senate, we've had legislators that have refused to wear masks at the Capitol, or they'll put them on really quick when they come onto the floor. And unfortunately, after the election, there was a big celebration with the Republican Party, and they lost one of their members due to COVID because of that. And just this week, we've been informed, we don't know who, because we haven't been told, a couple members again have COVID, and were at the Capitol on the floor while the rest of us were there. So there are people that are not taking this as seriously as they need to or be responsible.
Hey, thank you for stopping in. You're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and that was State Senator Mary Kunesh. We'll be right back after this short break. Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me, Wen. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
If the statistics say that 1 in 3 Native women and 1 in 6 Native men have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime, it means our whole community is affected by sexual violence. 1 is too many. Don't stand by, stand up. Don't engage in acts of sexual violence, and shut down the dirty jokes, the gossip, the victim blaming and shaming. As a community, we can change the way we respond. Contact the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition to attend a workshop to learn more.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
We are Calusa Nation.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
It's the best part of the show.
It is.
All right. Hey, I want to introduce my awesome and beautiful wife who wasn't with us yesterday. But
says it right there.
Yeah, it says it right here. Awesome and beautiful. Hey, and you work on animal issues. You have been for your whole life. And it's really exciting that for over 3.5 years, you've done a animal section about our sacred animals and given us updates. And I know today it's Fun Friday, so we're not going to be bummed out, right?
No, this is a really fun story, and it's called Fluff Friday.
Yeah.
Fluff Friday animal section
So
with our sacred animals.
Right on. Who do you work with?
I work with the Humane Society of the United States, and I am a humane policy volunteer leader. And I work on policies in the local and state level for the Humane Society of the United States. My name is Hanaji Hihani, and that means cares for them. And I was given that name by my Dega, Curtis. So as always, Curtis, thank you for that name. And I have a really fun story here today. Many of you may have heard about it because it was on Facebook and social media. It was really shown quite often. But it happened the end of March, and it's a really cute story about a lab mixed dog. And what this dog did was he would go to the general dollar store in Kenansville, North Carolina. And he was really smart because he sat out front and he waited for people to exit the store. And then once, they opened the door, he would scoot in and he'd beeline to the toy section, and he would grab this stuffed animal, which was a purple unicorn. And then the store people had to get the unicorn out of his mouth, and they'd send him out on his way, and he would come and do it again and again. So the dog did this 5 times. And then finally, one of the store people, once the dog came in, and the dog again went right to the same aisle and went straight for the same stuffed animal. It was a purple stuffed unicorn. And then they had to lock the door, right? Because there was an automatic door. So they locked the door, and they called the Duplin County Animal Control. And the officer, Samantha Lane, came to get the stray dog out of the store. And she was so kind to the dog, and even bought him the stuffed animal. So she bought him, she bought him, it was $10, and she bought him the stuffed unicorn. And they think that he may have came from a house, maybe that he had maybe a similar type stuffed animal like that. So that's why he wanted it, or maybe he lived with kids who had a stuffed animal like that, and that's why he did it. But they weren't really sure.
Maybe he dreamt about unicorns.
Maybe he dreamt about unicorns. But so what happened was they brought him to the animal shelter, and he had his little unicorn stuffed animal with him, and they took tons of pictures of him and put it up on social media. And that's it. Thank you. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, Ogama just put a picture of the dog and the stuffed unicorn. Thank you, Ogama, for doing that. But it's the cutest picture you'd ever want to say. But because of social media, the dog got adopted the very next day. But the people who worked at the animal shelter named him Sisu. Sisu, and that was after a dragon cartoon character in Disney's new film Raya and the Last Dragon. Now, I don't know anything about that story, but it's about a character who even after some defeat, never gave up on what they believed in and kept working. So I think that name
sounds like you.
Pretty much fits this little doggy.
That's so cute.
So now he's adopted into a happy home, and that's it. So it's really important to watch social media and to, I always say, adopt, do not shop.
Exactly.
Yeah. I also just wanted to let everybody know about, in case you don't really know, the Humane Society of the United States. It's the largest animal policy organization in the United States. A lot of people get confused because of its name, because there's lots of animal humane shelters out there. So some people think that I, adopt out cats and dogs and do that kind of work. I don't at all. It's all policy and writing bill. I don't write the bills, but the bills are written by people who are a lot smarter than me, and I just present them to my senators and House representatives. But so it's not the shelters that we don't adopt out cats and dogs. We're not associated with them at all, but those are so important, and we ask people to support them. But the Humane Society of the United States, if there is a natural disaster or hurricane or tornadoes that come through, they will, when asked, come in and help. And then we do work with the local shelters to get all those animals placed and set up. And I just wanted to say this also. There's an organization out there called Humane Watch. Now they are, because of their name, people will sign up and like their page and read the stuff that they put. But Humane Watch is an organization that its sole purpose is to put down the Humane Society of the United States. Humane Watch is run and became what it is because of big corporations, these big factory farms, right, that don't want to slow down kill lines, big hunting groups, because they want big money from trophy hunters, right? They don't want us to keep putting these animals on the Endangered Species Act when they could very easily kill them, right? The
Right.
NRA, that's another big corporation, because, we want to end lead shot. We want people to use other bullets. And of course, the NRA doesn't want us to do that. So Humane Watch is bad. Humane Society of the United States is good.
So, Wendy, if you ever had like a dream, would you want to do a podcast or a radio show? And what would you call it? Did you ever dream that?
Yeah, I did dream that.
What's the name?
It would be called Animal Matters.
So probably Wendy's
Animal Matters.
Or Animal Matters with Wendy's.
Something like that.
Well, stay tuned for that because I think we're going to make that happen.
Yeah.
Because I'm here to make your dreams come true.
Ooh. That sounds wonderful.
Cool. So if you had a show, what would you do? What would you'd have?
If I had my own radio show, you mean?
Or podcast.
Yeah, a podcast. Well, I would talk about, animal news, all about all kinds of animals, whether it's, African, elephants,
Right.
or I would just find news and just talk about that. I'd bring people on who I know who are experts about certain animal aspects. And then I would talk about, of course, our furry friends that we keep in our house, our pets, have a little section on our pets and give them
some politicians, because a lot of our friends that are politicians have
pets. Yeah.
And that's what was so strange about that last president.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was
one of the many strange things.
I know. He was like one of the only ones, right, who didn't have This was the first time there was not a dog in the
any
White
kind
House.
Of animal, whether a cat or any pet.
Yeah.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
You had to wonder what was going on there.
Yeah,
right?
I'm going to look up what's going on with Major and the other dog at the Biden house there, because they had a little bit of trouble in the beginning, but.
Well, it's an adopted dog, and he gets spooked really easy.
Yeah, they said that they didn't really acclimate him first.
Right.
So.
Hey, I would thank you, Peony Gigi, for your, giving us your information and your segment here, Wendy. I would like to end with these thoughts. If you're listening to the show, you are the resistance. We all are on trial, and from Chief Plenty Coops, the ground on which we stand on is sacred ground and is the blood of our ancestors. We need to resist, divest, join a group, run for office. You've been listening to the Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I've been your host, Robert Pilot. Peony Gigi to State Senator Mary Kunesh, Wendy Pilot, and Ogama with the news. Thank you so much. We're still here. We are the seventh generation.
Free Leonard Peltier.
Stop line 3.
Eric Perkins, the Firm Realty in Edina, would like to take this time to thank our doctors, nurses, and first responders.